Okay, cool. So welcome to the Student Affairs Assessment Initiative Community of Practice. That is a mouthful. This is our second one of the year. These little sessions are designed to bring in campus professionals to teach student affairs staff a little bit about how to tell their stories better. This is the second for this year. So the first one we had public affairs, talking a little bit about how to handle media type issues. The second one is about today, which you're going to hear from two wonderful professionals about video making. And here's the setup. On the Student Affairs Assessment Initiative team, which you've seen three of us right here, Marina, David, and myself are all on that team, we're thinking about the annual reports. And we're thinking about how do we turn our annual report digital this year? How do we get away from a printed document altogether? And instead, look at all the options. And videos are a great example of look at the options, the many ways you can tell your story. So this is really video making for dummies, is that safe? Or video making for novices? I'm putting myself in that category at least. At the end, I'm going to do a little poll just about our objectives here today, but in essence, I want to give them a little bit of space and time. I hope you all will ask questions of them. These slides and all of this will be put up on the website. So we're not worried about content as much as we are with interaction. And if nothing else, you now know two wonderful video making professionals who you can advise or be consulted with for your future projects. With that, I will let them introduce themselves so that it's for posterity. Do your thing. I'm walking away.
That's right.
Microphone drop.
Hello, my name is Todd Gillespie. I'm the Director of Operations for Instructional Development. Before that, I was the manager of video services at UCSB, and before that, I was the supervisor of Cox Communication Commercial Unit. Before that, I was at KYT. So I've been in video and film and broadcast making for well over 25 years, maybe 30. I don't like to do the math after that. So I've had a lot of experience in different ways to do's and don'ts of making videos. The way I kind of just saw to make this lecture hopefully a little more pertinent for everybody is I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of how good videos are made and what the 3 or 4 components that go into doing that, and to kind of think about it from a broad perspective and then how to apply that. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jessie Ward from Office of Public Affairs, who has much more of the practical understanding of working day to day with the individual departments around campus on making videos. So we kind of come at it from a little bit different perspectives. There are some overlap. We run into each other and definitely collaborate on some projects, but I think she's going to have a lot more better feedback for the community and the campus on that. So Jessie, please introduce.
Sure. Yeah, so as mentioned, I'm Jessie and I work with Public Affairs and Communications. I'm a multimedia producer. So I have been here for almost 7 years. Before that, I had a creative agency background, a lot of marketing campaigns for, I lived in Ireland. We did a lot of Tourism Ireland videos. Before that, I've had a questionable past in reality TV making. And yeah, so that's my intro. And yeah, so Todd's going to cover a lot of the real technical side of things, and I'm kind of looking more on the like publishing end of like once you have your video, how do you publish it, or how do you, it's almost more like the content and you're the technique, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Sure.
I'll let Todd take it away.
Awesome. Like Mark said, feel free to interrupt and ask questions. What I'm doing somewhat lazily is this is a hacked version of cinematography lecture that I give to upper division film studies and art students in filmmaking. So we're just going to kind of blow through a lot of this. Some of this hopefully will help make a little bit better understanding of what goes into making a good video. And we'll see how this works out. So lighting obviously is one of the important things about making a good video. If you don't have a light or some light source, it's going to be difficult for it to really look good. We'll go into some examples. When you're talking about lighting, we talk about lighting position. You have a key light, a fill light, then you can have a kicker, which usually means lit from the background, and that helps separate the subject from the background, stuff like that. And then the backlight, which refers to, well, what's behind me and how is that being lit? That's kind of just in real broad definition of that. So you got a key light, you got a fill light, you got a rim light, and then you got a backlight. The theory behind this is that you usually, in broad terms, you don't want to light somebody dead center. You want to light somebody about 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So this is very simple in generalization. So you put one key light at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and the other fill light matching that. And that's going to give a very complementary look to the way the person looks on camera. We're talking about people lighting a car or a truck. Things kind of change it. And then you get your background and rim light. Color temperature is another thing this is where we start to get into. We'll get into a little more practical here. But this is one of the big things that beginning filmmakers miss, is they don't properly balance even their phone for if they're shooting indoor or outdoor. And then you see a video after the fact, and it can be really blue or it can be really orange. Well, the reason it's really blue or it's really orange is your camera thinks it's shooting in the other area. It's either thinks it's shooting outside and you're shooting inside, and then that way you're going to get something really orange, or you're shooting outside and it thinks it's inside, you're going to get something very blue because it's not properly, the color temperature for the camera is not properly, getting it. I'm saying that because most cameras at this point that you guys are going to touch are going to be automatic. In the professional level, it's up to Jessie and I to figure that out on our own. But so that's why in this color chart. So when you're outside and you're not your color temperature is not set right, that's why it looks very blue, because outdoor lighting closer to the sun is actually more blue looking. So and when you film actually on a cloudy day is when it looks the bluest. The more overcast you have, if you want to make something look really blue, go out and shoot on a nice overcast day. And Santa Barbara has lots of those. So you can do a lot of blue looking videos at Santa Barbara. If you tell your phone, I'm inside, and go shoot outside videos, it's going to look very blue. It's kind of like a Matrix, but if you took the blue pill instead of the red pill. So that's enough about color temperature. Lighting, indoor, outdoor, where is the key coming from? This is how you kind of think about your shots and how you're doing it. Shot from Goodfellas. This is actually, while it looks simple, this is a little bit hard to do, because what you have is you have two actors that are pretty well lit, but the motivation for the light that they're still getting is still exterior. And yet the exterior image is not blown out where it's pure white. If you or I try to take our phones, go into a restaurant and simulate this, it would look nothing like that, because it'd be almost impossible to do that without a whole bunch of extra equipment and stuff. But the thing that I want you to take away is understanding where your lights, how to use your light to film your subject. Where it's coming from is kind of, if you try and battle against it, you're kind of a losing battle with sun and stuff like that. So that's why the things like this is kind of understanding about lighting is helpful when you set up your shots and look at filming somebody or someone where you're filming at. Lighting styles, high key, low key, all these kind of different ways of terminology that just kind of refers to how flat or how dramatic you want to do it. This is high key, low contrast. That's where everything is very bright, well lit. The differentiation between the background and the foreground, as far as the darks and the shadows, is minimal. It's called a high key, low contrast. And the opposite, when you get very film noir and stuff like that, is where you get, there's a ton of black in that shot because it's very low key, high contrast. So just some other terminology. Again, this is more film 101 than what you guys need to do. So shooting outdoors, the sun will always be your key light. Trying to fight the sun is going to be an impossible losing battle. So you have to think of the sun as your key light. And so when we think about that previous slide, it's kind of like, well, if I want my key light to be at about 10 o'clock, then you literally need to think, where is the sun? Where do I need to put my person, or where do I need to talk so that my sun is kind of lit, so it's not behind me or it's not to the side of me, so that it's kind of at that position. So you kind of got to work with the sun and literally kind of spinning yourself around on the planet on using the light for your advantage. The other thing is shooting in the sun, with the sun directly, without any kind of like softening and stuff like that can be problematic. That's why these, almost anytime you're shooting outside, you're not shooting directly in the sun. You'll have something that's called a scrim or a silk or something like that, and it softens the shadows for them, because it's really difficult. These are concepts we'll tie them together in just a minute here. So here's what happens when you shoot with nothing in, I mean, this could be shot at UCSB, just around the corner. So you got a subject very well lit on one side, very harsh shadows on the other side. She's almost squinting because the sun's too bright in her face. That's kind of problematic. And again, so she's kind of at that 10 o'clock, although the sun's up in space, so it's a little bit hard to get that 10 and 2 perspective, but it's kind of the same idea. She's lit on one side of her face, right about here, and then the other side is the shadow. So that's kind of where we would like the key and the filter to come in. But it's very harsh, hard to deal with. So this is the same shot, same position. They put a silk in front of it, softens it up a whole bunch. Now she looks a lot more soft. This softness on her face, much better. The harshness on the shadow on the other side totally goes away. It becomes a much more modeled kind of interesting shot that is attractive to look at. The subject looks pretty good. In here, they added what would be, I mean, this is for still photography, so they just added the strobe. You could do the same thing with video. You could do this with the light. You could also do this with something called like a bounce, and then just push a little bit more light to even it out. So that's what this is right here. That's a little extreme. I wouldn't do that much, but that's just me, my personal taste. Yes, sir.
I'm curious, in the last two, it looked like her eyes were closed, like she was
I
squinting.
don't know why they did that, because when you do a 1-for-1, you should be doing exactly the same. They didn't do that. Each shot of this for their example is slightly different. And so it's.
Well, I was just wondering if the light, when you add a light to it, if it actually would make it more likely for the subject to squint.
Yes, for sure.
Okay.
So that's why the silk somewhat helps. Can I go back? I don't know why she's lit well here. I don't know why they just took a shot of her while she's looks like she's napping. And they also changed perspective. But you can see there she's squinting because it's just direct sunlight. There she has a little bit more shade. She's smiling. But yeah, I don't know why they did that. It's kind of fun. It's hard to make these kind of like 1-for-1 comparisons and stuff. I've done it before. It's a real pain in the butt. So you get that. So now we're getting to more of like a traditional lighting setup. You got your one key light on one side. You got your fill on the other side. It's hitting both sides of your subject. Nice and bright. The background is also nice and soft and blurry. We'll go to that over that in a second. So that's kind of your basic elements you can see, and that's pretty much how it takes to do that. Now what you're thinking is great. Well, I don't own an 8-foot by 8-foot softbox. I don't have 5 people to go out with me and do that. That is correct. You don't necessarily need that, but understanding these fundamentals helps you figure out, okay, I shouldn't shoot directly over the sun. So if I don't have a scrim in front of me, let me go over to the shade. Let me go over to the side of a building that has shade. And so these are kind of like free things that you got to use and work with the elements around you if you can't replicate this. This is where we can control nature. If you get control nature, you got to work with it. And so that's one of the things that when I go out and shoot, we have all of that stuff too. It's a pain in the butt. Sometimes I think I don't want to drag all that stuff out. So instead, I'm just going to go and shoot underneath the tree. But I also need to make sure I kind of want to shoot towards the shade or I'm not blowing up the background. So these are kind of different things. But once you understand the fundamentals of how you want to light things and how you need to shape them, that even if you don't have that equipment, you can work with the elements that you do have to kind of simulate the same thing. So this is kind of a little bit more of the same thing. What I wanted to point out here, so what we got here is the fun thing here is the background. So the other thing about shooting outside is everything is very bright. It's very hard to shoot without any kind of lighting control at all. So this is the subject. She's over here. She's already well lit because she has a scrim that's softening up her most of her light. But it's funny because again, I don't know why they did this way, but they forgot this part. Look at her hand. Her hand is blown out because her hand is off the edge of that giant scrim hitting it. And it's cutting right through her hand right here. So even this professional job, they didn't do quite as well as they could have. But it's a good example of without that there, her skin would have just been completely blown out to white. It would have been almost impossible to shoot her well in direct sunlight. So you kind of, that's why you need those kind of stems and stuff like that, or find ways to shoot where your subject is not directly under the light. The other thing that, the other trick that they did here is, this is by comparison, the background, so your background here is very bright, it blows out, and we'll get into a little bit of the lens part of that. But the light itself for the background is very bright. The difference between the color or the brightness on her skin and the background behind her is almost the same. In most filmmaking, you want your subject to stand out from the background. If you don't have any differentiation between the lightness of your subject and the lightness of your background, everything gets muddled together. And then it's harder to draw your attention. Your viewer, you're watching it, however you're watching it. If you don't see any difference in definition, it becomes a little bit harder. These are all things that are like, well, I understand to watch somebody in the foreground versus the background. This is like, you don't realize how much your brain is doing this behind the scenes. And so this is one of those things that it does. So what the other thing that they did here is they added the screen. You can barely see it right back here behind her. So this is actually a black, pretty much screen they stuck right behind her. And the camera can't see it, you can't see it with the naked eye, but it knocks down the background, it makes it much darker, and it pops her. So now she looks very well separated from the background behind her, just because of the fact that they reduced the brightness of the background. Again, you're thinking, you're telling me I now have 3 things to take out with me on a shoot? So this is the part where I say, again, use the elements that you have. You're not necessarily going to have a stem to shoot outside and do that, but that means you want to, when you want to put your person or shoot your video, don't shoot into the bright, unadjusted background. Try and pick something that is going to be a little bit darker, shoot towards the shade, a side of a building that is not directly in the sun. You don't have necessarily control of all of those, but it's things to keep in mind that when you're making these videos and doing those kind of things, that you kind of, if you know what goes into it, it's much easier to do, to try and do that when you're out there on the shoot. All right, focal distance. We're going to fly through a lot of this because it gets a little heady. Focal distance is obviously where the subject comes in focus, the mechanics of the camera and stuff like that. Again, all of our iPhones do this for us, so we don't have to worry about that, but there's a lot of logic and math that goes into that. But the depth of field is what makes those nice things that now, what's it called on an iPhone where it separates you from your background?
Portrait.
Google, yeah, it's portrait where it does that, and it just like blurs the background. That's artificially doing that. When you have a good depth of field on the lens of your camera, that's what it's just artificially doing. This is more of that depth of field. What happens, and this is what all of our cell phones have. So the reason I choose this one is that a film camera has a giant lens on it. It has a giant aperture, and it has a big CCD or film exposed negative that it's projecting or it's receiving the image onto. Our cameras have an image that is a little bit bigger than a grain of rice that it's capturing onto. So the focal distance, the narrow depth of field becomes much easier. So you don't necessarily have to be completely in focus, and your camera is going to pick up a lot more in focus. And the reason it does that is because your camera sensor is so tiny that almost everything is in focus all the time. So that's why it has to digitally manipulate the camera to make that go out of focus, because it can't, because that CCD is so tiny, almost everything that it could possibly see is always going to be in focus because of the size of the aperture, not the aperture, but the size of the capturing device that it's trying to record to. So that's why I kind of show this. So lens really affects, I forgot a slide, really affects how things are coming in, how they look on camera. So most of the cameras that we have in our phones is going to be right between 24 and 50 millimeter. So everything kind of becomes in focus. And then you can see that how just the lens. So the thing about this is that they put the subject in the same perspective. So you can see that her head and distance in the frame is identical. right? The subject is not moving. The image, or not the image, but the overall scenery is the same size. What is changing is the lens and where the camera is to the subject. So it's the same subject, the same background, but you can see how the bigger, the longer the lens, the more separation you get from the background of the subject, right? So smaller lens, shorter, everything becomes very wide, and she becomes much more married to the background. A much longer lens, she gets pulled out from the background a whole bunch, right? So those are the kind of things. Again, most of this happens digitally on our cameras. Composition, everything has meaning. We're not going to go too much into that, but where you put a subject in focus has meaning. You don't necessarily need to think about this, but your brain and you growing up watching Gilligan's Islands and everything since then has all been predicated on the understanding of people who are putting those images in front of you, understand composition has meaning. Where they put things on the frame has a connotation to your brain that you're not even aware of. The rule of thirds, putting something in one part of the frame versus the other part of the frame and how that makes it interesting and how you get that differentiation and stuff like that becomes a filmmaking tool. You know, this kind of conveys meaning. You know, we got Morgan Freeman on one side, he's thinking, we got the typewriter on the other side, he can't go do his work, you know, the kind of composition. So even with that shot, with that one scene, your brain is already kind of processing that there's meaning to this. Just him sitting there, typewriter on one side, he's very separated on the other side. There's some meaning going on, whether you consciously are thinking about it or not. Again, this even happens. Pixar is a great thing. We're going to use a couple examples of Pixar. Pixar doesn't need to do this. Everything is digital. This world is completely invented, but Pixar also understands that there's inherent understanding that we apply in composition in the films and the videos that we watch. So they emulate it because that is going to make more sense to our brain. And this goes back, Leonardo da Vinci did not first start it, but he kind of is one of the, not pioneers, but one of the first people who really brought the concept of your eye line and where you put the subject in relationship to the portrait or the picture. And so pretty much ever since then, when somebody is talking to you on camera, this is really close to the composition that they have. And that was kind of established back in the late 1500s and the 1600s, because that is where, when that subject is in that top third of there with the eye line looking at you, it looks like they are directly looking at us. And that's kind of the concept that was created back in the 1500s. We got our first clip. I'm gonna get this out of place. Ooh, I don't even know if I can get it. So composition, this is the point of this, we're flying through, how am I doing? Oh, I need to get it over to you real quick, Jesse. They put him in the front of the frame. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look natural that he's in the front of the frame. They did that to kind of give this intentionality that he's kind of like pushing up against it. And you kind of think of it for a second. Here's the other part of it. It's like, it doesn't look like he's moving almost because he's running, and they put a big long lens and stuck it very far away and made him run. Now, if this was the Avengers and you wanted to make Thor look like he's running, you would never shoot it this way because it wouldn't carry any significance. It would look like Thor can't get anywhere. So it's making Dustin Hoffman look like he can't get to his destination. This is more talking about composition. So when you're putting your person in your frame, where you're putting them, how close to the camera conveys meaning, whether it's understood or not. Here we go, more Pixar. So this is a funny one where they don't need to move the camera. There is no camera there. The camera is moving all around the frame. Look at that. It overshoots. It has to rock back and stuff like that. So it's creating this frenetic atmosphere of what's going on. It's a Pixar movie. There's nothing physical about that. That camera, they could tell that camera to stop exactly where they wanted to. They didn't. It kind of is jumping all around, and so that is just helping the viewer understand that there's a little bit of chaos going on, that everything's not necessarily right. So you would see that 100 times and not necessarily realize that, oh, they're creating this from the composition. This is a fun one. I don't think anybody's gonna have time to do this, but this is done optically to create the compression of perspective. It's not necessarily, I don't know what it's called, it's not forced perspective, but where the camera distance stays the same thing, but all of a sudden the background compresses and it gets a whole lot closer. That was not done digitally, that's done optically. They literally move the camera one direction and widen out at the exact same time. And so that it looks like you can see the bushes don't really move at all. They stay in the same distance, but it's compressing that back. Again, composition and how you set it up really kind of matters. This goes back to our understanding of what we see on camera. We're going to fast forward a lot of this. I needed to. So here we go. Oops. These composition of things have meaning, right? So you're not necessarily thinking about this, but what the camera's doing lets us know. This is the end. Tom Cruise, Maverick has died. And this is the end of the movie, right? We're zooming out, we're panning back. Ron Howard did this totally to mess with us. So everybody in the theater at this point thinks it's ending. Why do they think it's ending? Because the camera's moving out and zooming. There's nowhere in the scene they're saying this is the end. But because of literally the positioning of the camera and how that's going, the audience believes the movie is coming to an end. And then this is where he plays the trick. And so at that point, everybody in the theater thinks the movie's over. And so it comes back in and says, oh no, JK, the movie's not over. But it is trying to explain to you the composition on how you can use it to convey meaning and everything like that without saying anything. Audio recording, real quickly, and we're almost done, or at least with my part, and then just get up here. If you record bad audio, you will always have bad audio. I know CSI makes us think that we can get good audio once we've recorded bad audio from Russian gangsters trying to, sell state secrets, and they run it through the filter, and all of a sudden it sounds like, everything else out there. That is not true. Bad audio will always sound like bad audio. So, from most of the perspective, when you're going out on production and you're recording video and audio, it's more important to get the audio right than it is actually the video. Because what happens is in post-production, or when you put the video together, you can cover up a portion of the bad video with a still photo, another shot, or something like that. But your audio dialogue or what you're saying can never be recreated if you didn't get another take of the same thing. So the audio actually becomes more important out when you're recording than the video does. So always make sure you have good audio. And so where you're positioning for your audio is very important as well. What you don't want to do is you can't really like this is a shotgun mic. Shotgun mics are great, but you can't be 40 feet away and expect to get good audio with the shotgun mic. So knowing and understanding what kind of audio you can be, how far away you need to be, pretty much what you want to do is be as close as you possibly can for good audio. Your mic, your subject should be pretty much right next to or as close as you can. Audio, these are different audio pickup patterns. They call it cardio and super cardio and stuff like that. You got shotgun, you got your shotgun mic over here. These are actually almost identical lavalier mics, but they have different pickup patterns. One of them's a cardioid, one of them's omnidirectional, and one of them's something else. Omnidirectional means omni, you can get everything like omnipresent and stuff like that, which is really good when you're in a space where you don't have a lot of extraneous noise. So you can put an omni on them, and that way you're going to know you're going to capture all of the good sound. If you go outside and you got a bus, you got planes and stuff like that, and omni is really going to be a problem because it's going to pick up too much noise. So knowing what kind of mic and mic pickup pattern you have becomes a little bit important. So kind of think that through before you go out. And again, proximity to your talent is super important. further away you are from the recording or the mic, it's just not gonna sound like that. So you really want to make sure you're using best device that you can for your recording. I think that's it.
Hopefully, you can see my stuff. It's in a slightly different.
Oh, yeah.
formatted.
If you can, you want to jump over to the laptop or the desktop over here. Let's see. You just close it. You said it.
There we go. All right, so. It's clicking through it, but it's not on the other screen.
Sometimes it's like off the screen a little bit, it needs to be pulled over.
Oh, okay, so actually maybe I need to go to
That again?
that.
There you go.
There it is. All right, now we can see it. So I'm Jessie. Here's what really picture of me. Flowers with my camera. So I work with public affairs and communications, making videos, and we also run all of the central social media channels on campus. So we do a ton of video and we do a lot of new stuff. So I'm just gonna go, so Todd went up over like so much of the good technical stuff, and I'm gonna do more of the like content, the why video. You know, we're here we wanna boost our digital presence. So I found this quote last week, actually, that YouTube is the social platform most Gen Zers are using as a search. They don't go onto Google, they go onto YouTube when they're looking for tutorials, that kind of thing. They're also using TikTok and Instagram. That's more for like social engagement, connection, shopping, like product discovery. But product can also be your team, right? You want your team to be discovered. So I just think that's kind of interesting that videos become such a more widely used tool in the social media and kind of engagement marketing space. So for me, I want to talk about more like what is your goal with your video? Because what your goal is with your video will determine your strategy for like what kind of video you're gonna make. So like, what is your video's purpose? Is it to build an audience, build your awareness about what it is you do? Is it to engage with your existing audience? Is it to drive traffic to another site? Or is it to just document an event? To just have like, if you have an event, you have someone there, like, our team covers commencement. We work with Todd to live stream it, but then we also do wrap-up videos. So the purpose of your video will define your audience, who your target audiences, which will define the style you want to make your video in, and it will also define where you put that. So the platform is like, is it on your own website? Is it on YouTube? Is it on one of these more social sites like Instagram, TikTok? So I don't know. I mean, I think most of us are all staff. We don't, aside from my lovely assistant Liz, who's a student. So I'm going to talk first about like if engagement is your purpose. You kind of look more at sort of the more social media sites. So we've got Instagram. This is just a screenshot of the central UC Santa Barbara Instagram, which we curate and post. You can see in the corner some of these, like this one, for example, those are all videos. The other ones are photos. So Instagram's pretty interesting. There's lots of different ways you can post on Instagram, whether they're stories, those are the 24-hour posts. There's reels, which are the vertical videos that have a maximum of 90 seconds. We have posts, which can be video or a photo or like a photo carousel. And then you can also live stream on Instagram. TikTok also is a really big place for engagement. We've had huge engagement on our central UC Santa Barbara TikTok, where we do video posts. They also have photo carousels. And you can also live stream on TikTok. So our team doesn't really live stream on Instagram and TikTok. But you know, depending on what your purpose is, maybe you want to do that. So with these platforms, and there's other platforms, I'm just gonna focus on these two main ones. Authenticity is super important. So we've found these are the platforms we're using more phone video. We also use other, you know, Instagram is a little bit more aesthetic. There's a little bit more expectation for it to be a little bit more high end. TikTok, people want to see real. They don't want to see scripted stuff as much. Also with these platforms, I also recommend don't just start a TikTok if you're not planning on posting regularly. Same goes with Instagram. So they're great, but if you're not going to make a regular habit of posting, you might look at this. Yes.
By authenticity, you mean unscripted?
Yes and no. So I mean, what I mean by that is unscripted, but also kind of real. Like people want to see, you know, not overly curated, if that makes sense.
Less posing.
Yes, yeah. I mean, Instagram is kind of heavily curated for a lot of people, but I think from what I'm reading is the taste for that is sort of going away. There's sort of a feeling that these like ultra influencer types are not as influential. There was a trend last year of de-influencing. There was people saying like they don't like stuff. But with all social media platforms, they are constantly changing. So for example, Instagram used to have Instagram TV where you could publish up to 90 minutes horizontally. You can no longer post horizontally on Instagram. TikTok, you now can post horizontally. You can post for like up to an hour. So they're always changing because they want to keep us on our toes. So here's some examples of some of the like engagement type videos that we've posted on our Instagram and TikTok. And some are like really silly and fun. So our audience for TikTok is more the on-campus students and then potential students. Instagram is a little bit more on-campus, potential students, alumni, people who like to, you know, be sort of involved or somewhat involved, but possibly a little bit more far-reaching. So it definitely has that much more of a flavor. You know, I wouldn't say the staff or the audience for our day in the life of a UCSB student, but our reel here, we did a tour of the ABCRC here in the SRB. And that posted on both of our Instagram. And I don't know if there's a mouse here.
Yeah, it's on that pull-up.
I will play this one. And it's probably gonna look. Hopefully this will go to this.
Might be like off the screen, so you gotta keep going all the way to the right.
There it is. Okay. That's very weird because I'm seeing it. There it is. And you can't hear it. There we go.
This is review.
So we do these tours of different spaces on campus, and this is what I mean by
Have some books represented, but
we want the students who are working there to
whenever you're in center,
Yeah.
feel free to drop one, if you'd like. We also have frequent collaborations in here with the Office of Black Student Development and other departments for events such as Black and Gold, where academic students are here to help you with your pastime. There's various artworks representing from all over the parts of the academic for any.
That's the student, yeah. And then this is another one from TikTok. This is. Sorry. And this is, again, TikTok uses a lot of trending audio, but for us, with the Office of Public Affairs, we're just trying to like get brand awareness out there of like, what is it? What is UCSB? So this was a trend of like, what makes sense? So these are things that you see Santa Barbara that just makes sense. So that's, what is it that makes UCSB, all of this. So, we have a lot of fun with those. We have a lot of fun with those. And that's the other thing about that, yeah, so those are the kind of like examples of like really engaging videos, trying to connect with our existing audience and growing audience. Yes.
I'm assuming that these are all being filmed on a cell phone, is that correct?
Yes, all of those were done on a phone, so, and they're shot vertically because the TikTok platform, and Instagram, Reels also prefer that format. Now, interestingly, Liz here shot a very cool video for us on TikTok horizontally. They now have a feature that if you're on your phone, you can click horizontally. Goes full screen on your phone, but you do shoot almost exclusively these stuff on phones.
And
But
is that just to, so that when it's easy, it translates over to other devices better?
Yeah, so when, and let's see, I'll go back. So one interesting thing about all of these platforms is because they're being posted and usually watched on a phone, that's part of it. That, not to get too into the needs of the algorithm, but the algorithm actually, your videos are more likely to be seen when you edit on those platforms. So if you shoot something on your phone and pop that video into TikTok and edit on TikTok and use TikTok's text, it's more likely to be seen by more eyes because that search engine optimization, the SEO, like it notices that text that you put in. And yeah, I mean, I think part of that is also, and I've heard, if you create stuff on any of these other, like on Reels or TikTok, and then you save, it can save the watermark. And those, so if you post something on Instagram that has a TikTok watermark, it's more likely to be hidden. They're not, these platforms have these kind of like discovery pages and For You pages. And when they're shot on the phone, edited in app, they're more likely to be seen.
So would you then not recommend doing things on Canva and then uploading it?
Well, it depends. I mean, I can go into that, but so yes and no.
Okay.
We do a lot of editing on desktop and then upload.
Okay.
So, and this is the other platform I was going to talk about. So this is our YouTube. So the other purpose of your videos, and I know Mark was talking about annual reports, is, if your purpose is more like educational, traffic, document events, YouTube and Vimeo are probably a better platform. Also a social media platform and also has a shorts component. But they're much better for long form videos. They're really good for emails and newsletters because they're just easier to embed. And you could do a curated video page, what I think is really interesting. I get an email from probably most of us do, the city of Santa Barbara. And it goes, click onto our video page, it goes to YouTube. It's not, they don't have their own webpage of videos, it just goes to their curated, YouTube page, which is great, because you have all these playlist abilities, you can like easily curate it. And you can, I'll go into thumbnails as well, but that's also part of it, is creating thumbnails is part of that curation and discovery process. But yeah, if you want a more professional style of presence, those are the platforms to post those videos to. And also event live streams, as mentioned, we live stream commencement, we've done grad slam, other things in the past. For those more like professional multi-camera event live streams, YouTube's kind of the gold standard these days. And it's great for documenting events as well. So the other thing is, because this is the way trends move on, YouTube also has a shorts function now, which is vertical. They have to be less than 60 seconds long, but if you're looking, I don't know if you ever look at YouTube on your phone, but now they're like starting to show ads and they have like shorts that are like TikTok. So this is, I don't think we need to like watch it necessarily, but this is one of the examples of a video that we post to our YouTube page. This is kind of the library opened a makerspace, so we went over there, we filmed people using it, we interviewed a couple of people who are working there, and we posted it on our YouTube page. It also went into our parents newsletter. I think we have a newsletter called SUCSB, which is through alumni, and then we posted it on news.ucsb.edu. So it's just kind of like a longer form thing, and the beauty of YouTube as well is you have these like ability to have these nice thumbnails to post thumbnails, so they look really good in newsletters. And here's me with some of the equipment as mentioned by Todd. This is our very fancy camera. You don't need a camera this fancy, but if you are doing a higher end shoot, we do recommend a camera that shoots at least 2K, if not 4K. That's the size of your frame. So that's 2K is just HD, 4K is like even higher. So most phones shoot 2K. All iPhones shoot 4K. They're just going to give you a bigger file size. I do, as Todd mentioned, should always have a microphone. These are just some examples. So this camera has like these wireless lavalier microphones that you can have other smaller microphones as well. Tripod is always good to have, and good lighting. Todd would do that, but like good lighting. And when we're here on this campus, even if you don't have all the lights and screens, you can usually find somewhere with good lighting. So for social vertical shoots, as mentioned, a phone, they shoot 2K and 4K. You can use this other camera for that, but it's really hard to flip it sideways. We do use, we have a DSLR. It's just like a camera that shoots photos and videos. Sometimes we use that and shoot it vertically, but usually the phone is just works great. Microphones. So these are the microphones. This is what we use for our social team. These were like $12. Little remote microphones. They plug into your phone and you can either clip it on. And it's great when we're doing what we call like a student on the street, and like people love it. And the sound is so much better. Now they're actually noise canceling. So having good sound is really important. You can also have like a plug-in style microphone. Don't necessarily need a tripod, but you can. Again, you're like get all this stuff for like you get a tripod for $25 to put your phone on, and good light. It doesn't matter if you're shooting on your phone or a big fancy camera, the sound and the lighting, it still needs to be good. So always take that into considerations. So for editing and post-production, for the higher end shoots, we use desktop software like Adobe Premiere, After Effects, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, iMovie. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You mentioned Canva. I didn't even think of Canva, but I think for like a longer thing, Canva would be more difficult, but for like a social vertical shoot, Canva works great. So in-app editors, there's also CapCut, which is a TikTok product. There's Adobe has a phone app, but
For the average person in the office that doesn't have a team of individuals like you do, are these things accessible to us through campus? Or is this
So-
something that our department needs to purchase for these things?
CapCut, like all the, so the Adobe Premiere and those things, that's a subscription, like our office pays for a subscription to that. DaVinci Resolve, I think is free. iMovie comes built in to all Macs. There's probably Windows versions of that. But for the like social stuff, the in-app edit, like CapCut is a free app. You can edit within Instagram, within TikTok, Canva as well. I think we have Canva, there's a you see Santa Barbara Canva account. It depends on if your office is subscribed to like Odyssey. There's other people in the office that are part of that, but for us, so our team with public affairs, we're like the branding police, so, and I'm gonna go into like branding, that's part of it. So it's great to have that, version of Canva, and I think you have more bells and whistles and templates in the paid version. But yeah, all these other ones, Premiere Rush, that's part of having the Creative Cloud and the Adobe account. But there's a lot of like free editors out there. So here's just a little look at, this is what our TikTok page looks like. And if you notice anything, so I say, don't forget, it's a consistent style to build awareness and brand. So as mentioned, we're kind of like the brand police on campus, but on TikTok, when we first started TikTok, they didn't have our brand colors. So we just kind of created a style. So we said, okay, let's just keep this one color blue. Let's use this one font that they have to keep it consistent. And that way, if people come across your videos more than once, it's like an immediate awareness that you're the same account. Now, the other thing about UCSB is UCSB itself, we always say like the campus is our brand. So even if we have videos, please do, we do the more like static style videos, we have the campus on screen. So that's part of the brand. Thumbnails are important. Yes, one of the nice things about Canva as well, it's really easy to like create thumbnails. And then also just be aware of when you're posting socially, you can usually choose what segment of the video you have some thumbnail. And then description copy and search SEOs, search engine optimization, they're really important as well. So when you're posting a video, having good description copy will also help with the search engine, searchability and discovery. And then I think we're all staff here, so this goes without saying, but when we work with students, so a lot of people are our team as well. We have like a really great team of students. I know you said like you have a lot of people. I'm the only video person on our team, but we do have a lot of students that work with us, and they help us with, especially like they keep our content fresh, and they help us create this content. As you see, like we have a lot of that go and like film on the street, but we also have to make sure that all the content is appropriate. So sometimes trends and songs have words that were like, this is maybe not what a higher education account should have this song. So sometimes we have to double check lyrics of things like that, and trends as well, like there was a trend a couple years ago where it's like decorating for Christmas, where someone threw a Christmas bauble into a room and closed the door, and then there was like a bomb sound and it opened up, and we thought that would be really cute, and then someone said it's like gunshot sounds, we're like, maybe not for a college campus, maybe we don't want to have gunshot sounds on the video. So you just have to kind of be aware of that stuff as well. So what's the takeaway? There's no one way to approach videos. And there's so many platforms and styles to consider, so it's really good to watch other videos and channels for inspiration, guidance, and see what else is happening out there. And hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully you got something from that.
Thank you.
So I think we'll leave it at that. I want to say thank you so much to both Todd and Jessie. I think this is exactly the type of stuff we needed. I know that I'm already thinking about every picture or video I do from now on. So thank you so much for coming. And again, these are resources to all of us, people that we can call on. So I would encourage all of you to do that. But thanks for coming.
Thank you.
And I want to go into like in slides.
Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Yep, I think I can.
Good.